Can be hard when you grow up. People fill you with doubt. You start thinking about what you're gonna do now. And it's do or die, gotta make it count. So lose your worries, let your problems go on until my whole body burns out. I ain't never gonna slow down. I ain't never gonna slow down.
Welcome everyone, this is Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Rearden and I will be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about your true self versus your indoctrinated self. Now when we look at true self and the indoctrinated self, we have to begin to define what those two things are. We have already talked about the true self on this podcast. The true self is going to be your most authentic self. It's going to be the person that you are destined to be, if you want to label it that way. It's going to be your fullest potential. It's going to be the reason why you were born. And this true self is going to be a characteristic of your life. Some people, they don't necessarily follow to their truth. They follow to the belief of what society says. They follow the advice of a parent, a teacher, someone besides themselves. And this is not to say that these people are bad people. It's just that when we're going through life, we have an option to live according to us or live according to the world. And this is where we get into the definition of the indoctrinated self. This is going to be the self that is created and that is molded by other people, typically society. Could be parents, it could be peer groups, whatever it is that's molding you is going to indoctrinate you into their belief. But in a sense, right, we are all indoctrinated because we're all kids. Well, we're all babies first and then we're kids running around, not doing the right thing, being foolish. But yet we go to school, we learn, we have dreams and aspirations, and maybe we adjust our dreams and our aspirations because we see certain teachers or parents, lifestyles, different circumstances. We get different knowledge and different wisdoms, and then we start to adjust accordingly. Essentially, we are becoming indoctrinated. We are not becoming true to ourselves. We are not coming up with our own ideals. But today we're going to be going on a journey. What does that mean? How do we change it if we need to change it? And there's going to be great news for us because I have a blog, The True Self versus the Indoctrinated Self. We're going to be looking at that just right now, and we're going to be getting a closer understanding of which one should we be looking at more so. Is the other one all bad? And then how to implement them into our life. So let's take a look at that blog right now. All right, everyone. As usual, if you are new to the podcast, new to the channel, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and to share this audio and your video to help build a community of like-minded individuals, and hopefully to help build a community of people who step into their true self. And so we can already start to kind of map the conversation that the true self is going to be the self that we should be looking at. Because we begin with our true self typically, right? Now, a little bit is going to be influence from our parents. And then our peer groups come in, then our teachers come in, and then society comes in. And it's typically in that order. What we have here is social conditioning. If we do not raise our kids might not necessarily be the best things to keep around. You might say, oh my God, I got to deal with this guy or this girl. Like, oh my goodness, they're a handful. And then sometimes you see different parents, right? Just different styles of parenting. We talked about the different styles of parenting already, correct? Yeah, we did. Now we get into the next step, right? What happens because we have parented them a certain way? What happens when we put them in different schools? What is their path? What is their trajectory? We lay out the foundation for them. But when we do that, in a sense, we are conditioning them to believe and to work in the way that we're allowing them to, because we're giving them all the tools. If I give you all some sticks, right? Everyone, here's some sticks, and you have a bunch of sticks, right? Or wood or logs or timber, whatever, right? Sticks, whatever. I want you to build a house of bricks now. Michael, but you gave us sticks. We should build a house of sticks. No. I want you to build a house of bricks. I don't care what you do with the sticks, okay? I want you to build a house of bricks. In a sense, this is going to be the difference between our true self and our social conditioning, indoctrinated self. You might be giving yourself something that is not necessarily what you want or what you need. So the sticks are going to be the symbol of, well, society's giving you something, right? And I'm using sticks because sticks are more fragile than bricks. They're giving you an ideal. They're giving you a concept. They're giving you a mindset. And then eventually, now you have no choice but to be strong, but to be fortified, but to be true to your capabilities and your standings. You need to be a brick, but they only gave you sticks. How do we get back to that place where if someone gives me sticks, I'm going to go get bricks? In a sense, if someone tries to condition my mind to think more so into what society says versus my true self, I'm always going to choose my true self. And this is what we do typically in coaching, right? Most coaches, and I say most because I know some coaches tell their clients what to do and they have to do exactly what that is. Fitness trainers, it makes sense, right? If you're trying to get in shape, do what the fitness trainer says, you're going to get in shape most likely. But when it comes to the mind, sometimes you have to figure out what that client is looking for. But then sometimes that client is going to say, can you just tell me what to do, please? And the answer is no, because we want you to be your true self. We don't want you to be a fake copy of us. We want you to step into what you should be in, because your life is different than my life. So I'm not trying to make you to be like me, to have my mindset. We look at yours. Now, how I present the information is going to be very similar to my mindset because, of course, I'm speaking. And sometimes I talk in platitudes where I'm going to be, hey, like this could be an option. This could be an option. But guess what? We get to choose. You get to choose. Just as if I give you 400 plus episodes of the podcast, that's what we have. You can listen to some episodes. You can not listen to some episodes, right? And maybe you are a long time listener. And I appreciate you. Thank you so much. We have to understand, right? All 400 of those episodes or plus episodes, you might say, you know what? I don't agree with Michael there. Good. I don't want you to agree with me at every turn. I just want you to understand that you have a choice to make, your mindset, what you want. And everyone's going to be so worried about, I can't believe you said this or you believe this. Well, good, right? That's my mindset. It's almost like if I bought a house, and I live in Texas. I bought a house in Austin, right? And it's a nice big $2.5 million house. I like it. But then, everyone else is like, I can't believe you bought a house in Austin. You should have bought a house in Georgetown. The city is growing. There's much more land. I mean, right? Like people can, say, this is my preference. And this is what it comes down to, preference. What is your preference? What do you want for yourself? What do you want for your kids? And everything that you have a preference for begins to become your lifestyle. And then it begins to be your truth. So the web is social conditioning, right? We talk about so many different things in this blog, and we're going to be having a conversation about that today in this podcast episode. But I want you to realize that your true self is more of the authentic version of you, the person that you truly should be, the person that you were meant to be. At some point, we go down a path, and no matter what happened in our life, we look at the truth. Our indoctrinated self is going to be the weaker version of us typically, right? So we're going to learn limits with indoctrination. Oh, we can't do that. That's not going to be healthy for us. Okay, great. But we need to figure out what we need to do. And so today we're going to be going on a journey to figure out what our true self is, what our indoctrinated self is, and what is true social conditioning. And this is going to be the dissection of a culture, of a nation, of a trajectory that could be life-changing. So as I said, this can be life-changing. you can make or break a person. You can make or break a child. I know the world is not fair, right? Because it might seem like, well, this person has a better lifestyle than me, and I have a farther race to go now. Because what I have to do is different than what they have to do. So I have to go through much more suffering. I have to spend more time, cover much more distance than someone who's already ahead or given the circumstance to start forward. I want to say something about that because we can all complain that the world is not fair. Oh, the world is not fair. I can't believe it. I can't believe that my life is this way. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. And then guess what happens? You are going to be inactive. You're going to say, what's the point of me even taking action? Because I'm so far behind. Well, the point is, your journey is going to be different than their journey. And if you do something more than someone else, you are going to maybe appreciate it more. You're going to be more adept in it. That means you're going to be more skilled. You're going to be a better candidate for a position later on if you eventually meet both ways or you meet at the same time. Think of it as if you want to be a business owner. You could just be born in a family with a bunch of businesses and the family teaches you about the business and you just know how to run a business now, right? But then you can be someone who has never learned a business. You can be someone who has failed multiple businesses. And eventually you find how to be successful in business. Now, at the end, we have two successful individuals when it comes to having a business. Which is the better candidate? Well, the better candidate is the person who knows how to create successful businesses. Well, that's going to be both of them, right? But when you're looking at someone who had to go through different acquisitions, the hard points, the trades, the buying and selling off of companies, bankruptcies, they're already more skilled than the other person who might not have that experience. And also, you know what they are? They're resilient. And I'm sure you can remember a couple episodes back, right? Or, a couple weeks back now, we have been talking about resilience. And this is where social conditioning begins. We can either become resilient to social conditioning or we can lose some resilience because of social conditioning. So our true self, think of it as your strongest self, right? Maybe you go to the gym, you can lift a lot, squat, bench, you can run far, right? This is your true self. When you are socially conditioned, they're going to say, you know what? This is the appropriate weight that you should be using. So instead of squatting 225, they're going to say, we want you to only squat 90. What happens if you only squat 90? You're not going to be as strong, right? Yeah, you're still doing the movement. Yes, you're still building muscle, but it's going to be to a different degree. One is going to be building, big muscles and stuff like that because we have more weight that we're working with. And then one, we're going to be looking toned depending on what we want, right? But we're also limited to that 90. But let's not use the gym anymore. Let's use a bank account. Let's say that the average salary for people is going to be $65,000. And this $65,000 is going to be the standard. We are socially conditioned for the standard. So guess what? The standard is $65,000. I make $68,000. Guess what? I'm going to say I'm ahead of the game. I'm ahead of people. And this is where we are. We are in competition with everyone else, but we forget to be in competition with the person that matters the most. Us, you, me, right? You have to look at yourself when you're trying to be in competition, not so much of the world or anyone in the world or another business. I understand you have competitors, but you're trying to be the best version of yourself. And you cannot be limited to a certain mindset in a certain degree. So when we become indoctrinated to the system and to the belief of limits, what tends to happen is we sacrifice what we can become. So that means our true self is not going to come to reality or be our reality. Because what just happened is we have decided to operate at a lower frequency. We have been told that this is the standard, this is your bar, this is where you need to be, this is what you have to do. And then from there is typically not going to be enough. Because we look at people who are wildly successful, they're not making 65,000, they're making, 6-7 figures. And everyone wants that lifestyle, but people can't get past their social conditioning. People can't get past their indoctrinated self. They can't get past the beliefs that they were led to believe. We have to relinquish them, and we have to step into our true self. But how do we relinquish the things that don't serve us? This is the most difficult part. And let me tell you, it is difficult because you literally have to destroy, tear down everything you know, everything. You can't leave any part of it, a section, a fragment, nothing. You have to get rid of everything. And then once you have got rid of everything, you have to now work with yourself. Now, typically, if you have a coach, it's a lot easier because when you tear down what you have built, and I'm not just saying like you sell your house and you start over from scratch like that, but what I'm saying is you tear everything down in your mind that you have come to know. Now, it's going to be difficult because now you're going to be in a sea of information, right? We can go to Google, we can go to the news, and we can be told what to believe, or we can be told what's going on. However, if fear is going to be involved in any of the information that you're receiving, or if a emotion that is necessarily personal that is going to be there, we do have to examine that more thoroughly. But what I can tell you is that there is going to be a system for you to follow. And the system is quite simple, but it can be quite intricate. Once you tear everything down, you have to stop getting outside information. And you have to start to be very selective who you keep in your company, what types of books you read, what types of things you do in your day. In a sense, you start to be very selective at first, right? You're very selective in what you do. Now, maybe you have some values, right? You have values of fitness, you have values of family, you have values of hard work, and you're going to want to keep those, right? Those are just something that's your character. And that's what we look at first, our character. When no one is looking at you, how do you act? Now, we are conditioned to act this way. This becomes our character. And then our character has the potential to help us get to our true self. If you're raised by kind, loving parents, by kind, loving grandparents, you have wonderful teachers, wonderful friends in your life, there's a very good possibility that you're going to be a person that's respectful, a person that is loving, a person that is not going to be belligerent, going to be hateful, braggadocious. They're going to be more flexible. You could be the opposite, right? Someone who's closed off, combative, angry, not a good person to be around. But let's use the positive. I want to look at the positive today. We can look at the negative if you want at a later episode, but today let's look at the positive. We need to be our true self. And typically, our true self, even if we had a bad upbringing, is good. And you know why it's good? It's because if I ask what you want in your life, you're not going to say you want something worse. You say you want something better. So if you live in a trailer right now, maybe you want a bigger trailer. Maybe you want more land. Maybe you're living in a house. You say, oh, I like my house, but I want a bigger house. I want to get a high rise in New York or whatever, right? Maybe you have a car and you say, this car is really nice, but I want to get this car because this was my dream car. And maybe you did get your dream car, but then there's another car that comes and you're like, oh, I like that car too. So we are always trying to figure out what is it that we truly want. And sometimes we get things that we want, but then that want dissipates and we get a different desire. This is actually social conditioning. We have learned or have been taught that if we get something, eventually it's not enough. We have satiated the initial feeling of desire, but then we desire something else. And this can be a hoarding mentality. Like if you think about it, we are hoarding for a rainy day or something along those lines. But when you give yourself too much, and we talked about this on a Wednesday episode about if your hands are full, you have to kind of drop some stuff so you can make room for what truly matters. And typically it's going to be you. Because if you matter the most, then you can do what's best for you, and then you can do what's best for the world. But if the world is telling you, hey, you need to be this person, you can only be this person, this is where the limits start to come into place. And I remember when I was a teacher, I saw those limits firsthand. And it wasn't even so much of that the teachers were bad people. Most of the teachers I worked with, I'm talking about A+, like lovely, wonderful souls. But they have their hands tied. They're handcuffed. And how we process their developmental learning and what they need is not necessarily true to what is going to be beneficial for them. One of the reasons why I was effective in teaching in all my roles, and especially coaching, is because I look at the person. I look at what the person needs. I don't look at what a first grader needs. I don't look at what a second grader needs. I don't look at what a 12th grader needs. I don't look at what a high-level CEO executive needs. I'm looking at what you can accomplish. What is your potential? What can you bring? Sometimes people say, oh, you're only one. Like, what can you do? But yet, if you get 2 1-year-olds, they're very different. If you have kids, if you have multiple kids, they're very different. Yeah, you have the same wife and the same husband, but yet the kids turn out so different. Why is that? Same upbringing. How we think is different. How our brain is wired, right? Our pathways are different. This is neuroplasticity at work. Our true self is always going to be in line with what we truly want. And if we fall in line to be like everyone else, we're being socially conditioned and indoctrinated. And when you become indoctrinated, you become unhappy to a certain level. You have a lower frequency. So if you do everything, right? I'm doing everything right. I'm listening to what the government says. I have stayed in my house because of the lockdowns. I silently became comfort. So we have lost the ability to be dominant, to be assertive, to be true to what we want in life. There are going to be people who just quietly and silently commit. They go, okay, this is it. But this is not even so much of how you progress in life. We get to make choices. And at every point, there is a choice and there is a consequence for those choices that we make. If you're in a relationship, it can be that you're true to the relationship or you're true to yourself in the relationship. But then there can be aspects of what modern society is telling you to think in a relationship or what a relationship should be. But yet, you have to figure out what you want in a relationship. And then you have to be able to communicate that to the person that you're in a relationship with. And if both people can't come to, this is my true self and I want to be this true self for you, right? Because we're trying to be our true self for each other, a relationship is going to struggle. Because now you have a person who believes what a relationship should be versus then how they truly want to live in a relationship. Sometimes this can be like the stay-at-home wife mentality. We have the idea and the concept, right? A woman should stay at home, but she doesn't have to, right? A woman can go work if she wants to. She can be that independent lady. We have to ask ourselves, though, is that what she truly wants? Because I know women who want to work. I know women who don't have to work, but yet they find delight in doing that. But yet they separate their work from their family. So if they have a family also with their work schedule and their boss or whatever, they know which one takes priority. Some, of course, it might not be ideal for the family, do work, right? I'm going to make work a priority. It doesn't matter if I have a 2-year-old at home. I'm going to make work a priority, right? That's just their mindset, right? There's nothing wrong with having that. Maybe that is your true self. But then there's going to be people who would say, I'm going to leave my job if I feel like I can't be the best family person. Now, you can't necessarily leave your family because you want to work. There might be an aspect of you get a nanny, you have your parents raise the kid. That could work. You can be more absent and do the things that you want to do, and then overall you're more happy. That's going to work. But there is a fine line there. If you are going to be following this path of your true self, right? What makes you the most happy and alive? It doesn't matter if you are an absent parent. It doesn't matter if you are someone who is going against the mold of what society is. You're being your true self. You're not being conditioned or going with what was conditioned into you. Oh, you have to work. You have to be this type of person. You have to have this type of persona or this type of mentality. Okay. But if it's not true to you, it's going to be a detriment to you. That means we need to make sure that if we are not our true self and doing what we want, because the best way you can tell, let's say you are a businesswoman and maybe when you're, early 20s, you are focused on career, education, you build yourself up, you have a PhD. But guess what? When you're 35, now you're giving yourself that mindset, or you have planned for that mindset of, I'm just going to be a stay-at-home wife now. I already did my career. I already did everything with that. I just want to focus on family. The true self is typically what we place at the end. So when we think about retirement, we think about that person who's free, that person who can just do what they want versus a person who's stuck in the system. It's a whole jumbaloo, like a whole gumbo stew of stuff that we have to put into our life. And if you put in the wrong ingredients, you're going to ruin the batch. You're going to ruin the prosperity that you can create. But there is good news. The prosperity that you can create can always be created at any moment in your life. It doesn't matter if you're 20, it doesn't matter if you're 80. You can create that moment of truth for yourself. Some people, they get to their highest quality of life a lot sooner than others. But then there's some people who kind of drag it along and they wait for, 40, 50 or whatever to finally realize this is what I want to do. We do also have to look at the mindset that if I'm in my 20s, my mindset is going to be different than in my 30s and then also in my 40s, right? And we can go all the way on to 80. What I will say is, even though your mindset can change, there is nothing stopping you from doing the flowchart system. What we do and what we use here at Reven Concepts is that if we look at how we are at 20, we can look at a flowchart, and if everything we do, if what happens in the world is going to adjust our scale and what we choose, we can see what we would be at 30, how you would do that. You would get a coach, look at people who are 30, or you would just get books, look at other people's lives when they're 30. We can see some realities that's happening. Then we can go down the flowchart of there, go to 40, the same thing happens, 50, 60, 70, and so on. We get to see people's lives, and then we get to say, well, these are the possibilities at this point. Now, yes, you can get in a car accident and not be able to walk at 20, or you can wait until old age and get osteoporosis when you're 50 and 60. You are still struggling to move. The result is not so much of what happened to get the result. We are looking at what is going to be happening to get the results that we want. So in a sense, our true self versus our indoctrinated self is going to be that type of mindset, is going to be that type of mentality that we need to be looking at and figuring out if we are trying to go down a path that is true to us or a path that is being given to us. Sometimes a person is going to give you secondhand stuff, or if you think about it, if you're at a nice banquet, they give you the scraps of whatever wasn't eaten. And then you're like, okay, well, let me, go through this and figure out what is necessary for me. Now, I remember there was a movie, I forget the name of the movie. It was like a movie where it was like different levels. And on the top level, like level 1 or whatever it was, they had a platter of food and everyone can eat as much food as they could. And then eventually when they were done eating, it went down to the next level and they will eat as much food as they could and went down to the next level. And there were so many levels. So by the time that the food got down to the bottom levels, there was just like bones or scraps that they had to eat if they wanted to live. But this is not so much of making it so nasty, like, life is that. But it is something we have to look at. We have to realize that, hey, if I'm trying to do this web of social conditioning, I'm going to be focused on, I'm going to be making the best moment for myself. I'm going to be making a moment that I can be happy with. And happiness is not one of those things that, oh, well, I'll be happy when Prince Charming comes, or I'll be happy when I get a wife that's dutiful. I'll be happy when everything goes my way, got a full bank account of money. I'll be happy when I have a dog and a cat, and I'll be happy when I have a bunch of kids, and I'll be happy when I have a big house. And I mean, we can go down the list of all the things that might make us happy, but yet we don't need anything to make us happy like that. We can be happy just as we are right now. Happiness is a state of mind, and happiness is going to be akin to our true self. Because if we are indoctrinated, if we're doing the wrong things, if we're doing something that we don't like to do, imagine we're going to be more focused on like, I don't like this. And if you don't like something, guess what? You are going to not want to do it. And you're going to put yourself in a vibration of negativity. And you're not going to want to move as much. And if you're familiar with what depression is a mix of emotions. It's not so much of a real thing, like a real feeling, right? You can be sad, you can be angry. And when you're just multiple feelings, we call it depression. Now, there's also the aspect of chemical imbalance. You might have a chemical imbalance, and that's when you have to take meds, and they call it antidepressant meds. But this is a different conversation, right? The idea for that is more so we look at, if we go against what we were always meant to be, if we go against who we are going to feel different emotions. And typically we're going to feel different negative emotions. We're going to feel like we're an imposter. We're going to feel like we're not good enough. We're going to feel like we're scarce, or a scarcity mindset in the world. There's not enough to go around. Because we're not being true to ourselves. We're not showing ourselves every single day that it is possible. And one of the best things a parent can do is show up. It's just show up for their kid. Just say, hey, this is what an adult does. This is what a man does. This is what a woman does. And then from there, we make the changes. However, the changes might not be easy to make. Because we have to go against the system, right? If we go against the indoctrinated self, we put ourselves at risk to being secluded from the country, secluded from our peer groups, secluded from the livelihood that we know at a genetic level. This innate feeling of we need community. And in a sense, yes, we do need community. But if we're around the wrong communities, we're not necessarily going to be in a good position for growth. So this just means we have to figure out the best situation for us, the best idea for us. And then from there, we make the change necessary. And we help people make that change to their true self all the time. We understand that sometimes you follow the system, you become indoctrinated just to undoctrinate yourself later on, because it's easier to do that. But it's more difficult to tear everything down. What I will say is, if you are a person and you're like young, right? And you're listening to this, good on you, number one. But the path that you will go if you take your true self first is going to be more difficult. Why is it more difficult, right? Well, kids are going to make fun of you because you're different. They're going to look at you like you're weird because you're going against the crowd. You're going against the mold. You're going against the system, right? You're going against what is normal. And this is not so much to say that you're like, crazy and you have all of these thoughts that are negative. You get to choose what you want to do. You get to choose what you want to feel. And we promote positivity here. We don't promote violence here. We don't promote a mindset that's going to harm you or others. We promote a mindset that's going to help you reach a higher potential, help you reach a better lifestyle, and we do it in a way that is authentic. That means what you do is true to you. Not so much true to me, not so much true to another listener, or not so much true to the government or the president or your mom or your dad or brother or cat, whatever. You get to choose. And though you might feel obligated to do something, you have to do the work. And you have to find the reasons to do more in your life. Because at some point, we got stuck. We found an obstacle, or we were faced with an obstacle, and it just stopped us. And we are maybe now just building around that obstacle. Like, okay, this obstacle's in my way. It's not where I need to be, but is where I'm at right now. So I'm just going to build around that. I'm just going to build. And after I'm done building, whatever is there, that's my life, right? So think of it as if you go camping, and in camping, there's going to be good camping spots and bad camping spots. A bad camping spot might be right by a pond, right? Like a pond that is full of leaves and sticks and stuff. It's the perfect breeding ground for mosquitoes. You're like, okay, great. This is I got a little bit of water, cool. But then now you're getting bit by mosquitoes. And you need to say, whoa, like, is this going to be my whole entire camping trip? But then you might find a nice view and you can see a nice big lake, and you're on a hill and you can see the sunset or sunrise, whatever. And you're like, okay, I'm going to make camp here. That might be a better place for you to build. Maybe you can build nice soft grass versus you build your tent on a hard pavement or on a bedrock of rocks. You find the best place to build. Not so much only thinking about comfort, but a suitability. Would you rather watch a sunset or would you rather watch a sunrise? Would you rather be able to feel the grass in your hands or pick up a rock and throw it as far as you can into the lake? Which one is your preference? Just as you probably have a favorite color or colors that you gravitate toward, just as you might like a certain type of food, this right here is you realizing what you like, what you want. Because if you go to a restaurant, right? Let's say I have a restaurant. I'm going to call it Mikey's, right? And it's a diner because Mikey's sound more like a diner than like a big restaurant. So we have this diner at Mikey's. And when you come to Mikey's, you have no choice, okay? This is a restaurant where you come in, you sit down, and whatever you get, you get. Now, I know there's restaurants like that, but we're giving this as the example and the analogy of life. You're going to sit down at the table, and life's going to serve you up something. It can be good, it cannot be good, but we have a choice. We can eat the food quietly. We can get up and walk out and go to a restaurant where we have a choice. Or we can just say, you know what? It doesn't matter. Yes, I'm here right now, but I don't have to be here tomorrow. So we live in the moment. We relish in this moment where we have no choice, in a sense. Then we learn. Because I always talk about the idea of, we have this idea of good and bad. We want to have good in our life, right? Typically, yes, right? We want that good in our life, as I said. But we need to have the former to realize what we have is good. Sometimes you can have all the good in the world, and I'm talking about you can have it good, partner. You can have a good car. You can have a good job. You can have a good family. And we take it for granted because we have become numb to it. So in a sense, we learn. We learn from the bad. We learn from this indoctrination. We learn from the system. We learn from the scarcity. We learn from different mindsets. And then we get to say, you know what? I've done that already. It's not really vibing with me, right? The energy is off. It feels wrong to me. Whether you're dating a person, right? You're dating a person. You're like, no, like this person's not for me. Well, why? They're a person, right? Maybe the gender that you like, guess what? They should be the good fit, right? They're a person. They're human. But it's more than that, right? A relationship is more than that. And life is more than this. Because, like I said, you can find, just any old person and settle. You can fall into any old circumstance and stay there. But to give yourself the determination to change, to give yourself the mindset that I'm going to make a difference in my life. I'm going to do all the things that I want to do that are going to bring my life to new heights and new levels. It might not be easy, but it is going to be essential. So all in all, right, this blog that we talked about today, and I kept it on the blog for a reason because I wanted you to see that it is there for you to learn from. And we have so many systems here at Reven Concepts where we help the mind push and pull, push and pull, push and pull. Because if you know anything about growing, you need to have that expanding, right? Think of it as a rubber band. We talked about it on the podcast before, where if you have a rubber band and you're, like stretching it a little bit before you wrap it around something, it becomes more flexible. Our true self is extremely flexible. However, we have that line in the sand, again, another blog, that we are working with. Mindset is this. It's a building block where we start to learn the little skills that we need. We start to learn the things that are going to help us grow, get to the next level. You have to be a certain strength in life. And I'm not saying like super strong, like, like you're a bodybuilder and like you lift big rocks and stuff and a lot of weight in the gym. It's more of our strength for ourselves. Can you be true and go against everything that is being given to you if you don't like it? Are you brave enough to challenge? Are you brave enough to not only operate on your feelings and your emotions, but to operate on the reality, which is you? Yes, I understand there's going to be people who have different mindsets. Think of it as a political party. You have Democrats, you have Republicans, and they have different mindsets. They're just different people. They have different lifestyles growing up, and they become different adults. And the other side, Democrats will say, oh, these Republicans are crazy. And then Republicans will say, oh, these Democrats are crazy. Imagine if you just started living in their shoes now, right? You're no longer your true self, and you will feel that you are living in the indoctrinated self because you're just doing what you were told. They were telling you what to do, telling you what to believe. They were telling you their feelings, their mindsets. So if you do it, you feel indoctrinated. And as you can see, indoctrination doesn't feel good. But yet indoctrination is very tricky because when we're young, we don't know we're being indoctrinated. We don't know we're being told to believe in a certain way and act in a certain way. At some point, we relinquish that and we become our true self. But there's a good portion of the world that live in this indoctrinated self their whole entire life. At some point, you might hear this phrase, right? People woke up, right? There's an awakening that happens in their life. There's an epiphany. And that epiphany is that they saw their true self, or they saw the realization of what they could do. We are going to be doing that as we progress on the podcast, as we have more coaches come on. We're going to be learning how to get closer to that true self, because it's easy to get distracted. It is easy to fall out of line to what we need to do. Think of it as your tires are calibrated and even, right? You get your tires balanced. So your tires, if they become imbalanced, eventually you start swaying to one side, like you start swaying. If you get in a car accident, typically your alignment gets all messed up. So now you're, all messed up and you're not driving straight anymore. Just 1 degree off can leave you in a totally different place from your destination. So we have to be dutiful. We have to pay attention. We have to make adjustments to what we are doing in our day and what destination we seek. And we're making sure that every single day we're checking in. Are we on the right path still? Yes or no? If we are, great. If we're not, let's make an adjustment sooner than later, because the gap that you will have to do if you wait 10, 20 years is going to be a big gap for you to make, versus if you pick up a cigarette today, take a puff, you got, puff a cigarette, right? And that one cigarette is not going to change your life. However, maybe you spend 10 years smoking cigarettes. Now we have a different story. So it's not so much of just doing things once or living in a moment. That's a very short time, right? If you're 21, you go out and drinking for 4, 5, 6 months and you're like, okay, I'm done with that. It's not so much of a lifestyle. You're 21, you start drinking, and then at 60, you're like, okay, I'm still drinking. We have to figure out what is beneficial for us. What is good for us? What is bringing us up? In the blog that you were able to see, the whole entire episode almost, is going to be that, right? The web of social conditioning, looking at our true self and our indoctrinated self. This is going to be a must read. I go a different path in the blog, in the podcast. We're talking about so much of the true self, how we get there, and looking at there's going to be obstacles that are going to be trying to shift us away from that person. In a sense, you might ask, well, why is the world shifting us away from our true self? And there's no necessarily good excuse for the world to do that. It's just a natural thing the mind does. Think of it as procrastination, right? Procrastination is just a made-up thing that we do. We say, okay, I'm going to procrastinate because I would rather be on my phone than to do this paper. Or I would rather be on my phone than go back to work. We fear this idea of doing something, and we wait as long as we can. And then eventually when the fear becomes great enough, we do the action that we have to do. So if you're a college student, an example would be you procrastinate on doing your paper until the day before. The fear of not doing your paper becomes greater than doing your paper finally. And now we make the choice. We make the decision to do the paper. However, our true self is going to be doing the things that feel good a lot sooner rather than waiting. Indoctrination is going to be, all right, you wait for your turn. Think of it as that it's like a metaphor, like a saying that someone created that was indoctrinated, clearly indoctrinated. I'm going to keep on clapping until it's my turn. This is an indoctrinated quote. This is going to fool your mind to wait, to be limited. Are you seeing what's happening? And it's so subtle. It happens so soon. We have to be able to see those small marks that are trying to move us away from what we desire. And I'm not talking about you get everything you want and you're entitled. You have a purpose in life. Some people reach that purpose, some people don't. The people who don't decided not to. They made a choice at some point in their life to not get up. If you get knocked down, you have a choice. You can get back up or you can stay down. Which one do you choose? The true self is always going to get back up. The indoctrinated self, maybe it learns to be submissive. Maybe it learns to accept the reality that this is hard and I don't want to do the hard stuff. It's a possibility. But if you're a person that wants to do the hard stuff, if you're a person that wants to make some changes in their life, if you're a person that decides that I'm going to do more for myself, more for my family, and what I do, I'm going to be happy that I did it. I'm going to feel that empowerment. I'm going to feel that fulfillment. I'm going to live in that joy. Our true self is going to be full of that. It's going to be full of that joy, full of that exuberance of life, of learning, of love. We're not going to be afraid anymore because we're confident in who we are. No matter what, we are capable. No matter what, we become reliable. A bird does not worry about, oh my goodness, can I make it to the top? They allow their wings to do the work. They have confidence. You probably see some crazy birds. They jump off like a tree and they don't even do anything until like the last minute, and then they rely on their wings. A mother bird would throw their baby out of the nest to start to learn how to fly because in their mind they're limited. They're like, I'm here in my nest and it's safe and I don't want to move. But then when they have no choice but to fly, they fly. And sometimes in life, we have to give ourselves no choice but to be true. So if you are a person that needs help to be true to yourself, if you're a person that needs to be true to the aspect of growth, of learning to get away from what the world is telling you, from the limiting beliefs that you have given yourself maybe, or that others have given to you, reach out to us, revenconcepts.com. We'll be more than happy to look at what's going on in your life, figure out where you went astray if you did, and if you are in your true self, to keep you aligned to that person. It is easy to get off track, and the moment you get lost, it can be a scary moment. And when you're with people and when you have a team that is there to help support you, things become more doable. So we're trying to do life the right way. We're trying to do it big. We're trying to create an empire that we can be proud of, because at the end of life, we're going to regret the things that we didn't do. And indoctrination and following the system of social conditioning, they're going to be telling us to not do a lot of things. But yet our true self might be hungry for that. We might want that steak, or we might want that fish, or that piece of broccoli. I don't know. Especially if you're like a vegetarian, you might want that. We are not satiated until we get that thing that we crave. And you should crave greatness every single day. So step into greatness, step into empowerment, step into the true self, which is you. My name is Michael Rearden. I'm a mindset coach. If you have any questions, email me coachinginsession@gmail.com. And I'll see everyone on the next episode of Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone take care.